¿Te interesa conocer los consejos de una experta naturópata para ayudar a reforzar tu sistema inmunológico y ayudarte a protegerte en caso de que contraigas el mentado coronavirus? Pues entonces, bienvenidos a este segmento Cápsula Informativa. ¿Te gustó mi jingle? Sí, antes que nada quería pedirles una disculpa a todos mis suscriptores por mi larga ausencia, lo siento muchísimo, pero este año ya vengo más recargada y tengo en mente 4 segmentos, uno va a ser de nutrición, uno de recetas, uno de espiritualidad y uno de belleza, así es que pues les pido una disculpa por mi larga ausencia. Una explicación rápida sería que los primeros meses me fui de viaje, un bucket list viaje que tenía por Sudamérica. Fui a Chile, Argentina, a Brasil. Es que no les he contado, pero yo fui sobrecargo y una de mis pasiones es viajar. He viajado mucho y me encanta viajar y además sola. Si les interesa, pues les haré videos de eso. Luego, la segunda mitad la dediqué a la postproducción de mi cortometraje, mi último proyecto de terror, que combina tango y terror. Y pues sí, me tardé mucho, porque pues cuando hago un proyecto yo lo escribo, lo dirijo, lo produzco, lo actúo y lo edito. Y en esta ocasión hasta hice la color correction. Me tuve que autoenseñar a hacer color correction en DaVinci. Y además tuve que contratar al candidato ideal para hacer los efectos especiales y al candidato ideal para hacer la música, etc. Y ya los últimos meses tuve un pequeño susto de desarreglo autoinmune. Entonces fue todo un como viacrucis de conseguir a la persona a la que yo confiara más, así. Y pues como no le hice caso o no me gustaba lo que me decían ni la ginecóloga, ni el reumatólogo, ni la nutrióloga, ni nada, tuve una especie como de recorrido hasta que encontré a la naturópata, que es nuestra invitada del día de hoy, la doctora Ángela Dagrios, con más de 14 años de experiencia. Y ella se va, ahora sí que a la root cause, como le dicen acá en Estados Unidos, se va a la origen de la causa. Me hizo una batería de exámenes muy interesante que si les interesa, me lo ponen en los comentarios, les explico, de sangre, de saliva y de orina. Y súper tailored, así súper personalizado. Y me dio una serie de protocolos y pues, bastante sencillos en realidad, pero fueron suplementos, algunos cambios de dieta y de estilo de vida y todo volvió a la normalidad. Me regresó las reglas, todos los exámenes de sangre a los 2-3 meses ya están perfectamente bien. Todo esto para decirles que me ausenté. Me ausenté, pero fue todo un aprendizaje que ya traigo pues como más cargado y que también les puedo compartir. Así es que pues sin más preámbulos, esta doctora nos va a dar 5 tips, así los top tips para reforzar nuestro sistema inmune y en caso de que pues nos infectemos con el virus, pues no suframos tanto a la hora de recuperarnos. Y también lo que es muy valioso es que a ella le dio coronavirus y no tuvo los típicos síntomas. O sea que es muy interesante su historia para también saber que no solamente es esa stormy, no es esa tormenta de cuadros respiratorios, sino también hay otros cuadros que se presentan, como el que le pasó a ella, y las 5 cosas que ella hizo para salir adelante. Así es que aquí vamos, la entrevista va a ser en inglés. Todos los que hablan inglés no van a tener ningún problema en entenderla, y los que no, pues les voy a poner supongo una traducción y una transcripción, ahorita lo voy a averiguar, pero pues aquí los dejo y es muy interesante, yo la adoro y espero que ustedes también. ¿Vamos? ¡Cápsula informativa!
Hello, Dr. Angela Dagrios. Namaste. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know you are really busy, and I really appreciate you helping us here. I've already made your presentation, so everybody knows how much I love you and how knowledgeable you are. So I just want to start by saying that you contracted the virus back in March, And for me, the expertise that you're going to share with us is priceless. So I come up with like 2 questions. One is, what are the 5 top tips that you could give to a general public to kind of boost their immune systems in case they contract the virus?
Yeah.
And second, what are the top 5 things that help you to overcome the virus? Okay?
Okay. So good to be with you guys. Here we go. Okay. So, in general, kind of intense times. We've been watching COVID unfold for many, many months now. And, we don't have a crystal ball to figure out how it's going to go. There's many things that affect how a person might experience COVID, a lot of different symptoms. But we do know we have enough research at this point to figure out that there's some key things we can do to really try to help ourselves have better outcomes with COVID. So one of the number one things, we have a lot of control over some of these areas, but we don't always think about these things. I'm going to start off, number one, it's in the diet zone. So with diet, we really want to think about taking down our sugar intake. When we have a lot of sugar, and sugar can be straight sugar, but it can be, refined carbs like crackers. It can be, a lot of processed foods. It really tanks our immune system. So, very easy to keep our immune systems working better if we eat less sugar. The second thing is that I know
sugar.
No sugar. Yeah, try as much as possible to eliminate sugar. And it's hard because when we're scared or stressed, a lot of us are reaching for those cookies, or even chips or things like that. It's a lot of simple carbs, and it's not easy on our immune system. The second thing is that a lot of people are drinking more. People are really scared and stressed or depressed even. And so people are coping with a lot more alcohol. And that causes a lot of oxidative stress in our bodies. And what we've learned with COVID is that our immune system has a big response to this very virulent virus. It's trying to help us, but in that process, we create a lot of oxidative stress and damage. And part of some of the really scary respiratory issues that happen with COVID, and so many of the symptoms happen because of the oxidative stress and inflammation that are created when we're fighting this virus. And so if we can do things to keep our oxidative stress lower that are very much in our control, that can really help us if we're not using up all of the good antioxidants that we have in our body. So,
alcohol out.
So less sugar, less alcohol. And then I'm kind of sneaking one in there. It's kind of a 2.5, but really focusing then on nutrient dense whole foods, organic foods, foods that are rich in antioxidants. It's going to be very, very protective. Okay.
Antioxidants. Okay.
Cool. Yes. And then the third thing, again, it sounds very basic, but most of us really fail in this department, is get enough sleep. Most of us, it's so hard, right? We're so busy. And we're, now a lot of us working from home we're working even more maybe because, we're checking our phones, we're on emails, we work way late into the night. And then there's, a lot of responsibilities that we all have, but we really can't cheat on sleep because when we don't sleep enough, our immune system is depressed and it's easier to catch any kind of virus, let alone obviously COVID is everywhere right now. And then we don't fight things as well when we don't have enough rest. So getting enough rest and sleep is actually really, really critical. Another thing that we really have to do and think about, and this is not obvious, is really supporting what our emotional state looks like. So I am a really big fan of daily joy practices because when we feel depressed, sad, disconnected, which many of us are because of the isolation of COVID, our immune system also doesn't work as well. There's a whole field of science called psychoneuroimmunology. We very much know that our emotional state is linked to how our immune system is functioning. So we also have to take good care of our emotional state to keep our immune systems strong. And the last thing I would say, just for general protection, is take the supplements that we know are really protective. There are certain supplements we know. I mean, even when President Trump got sick, we saw his medical team posting things like zinc and things like vitamin D and melatonin. There are certain nutrients that are very, very protective with COVID. There's kind of a 3-prong approach for what I think are both protective and restorative, even if we get the virus. And that is really looking at what keeps our immunity high, things that help us work on viruses should we contract a virus. We know that COVID causes a lot of oxidative stress. So keeping antioxidant status high And then the third thing is really doing things that are anti-inflammatory and a little bit on the anticoagulant side, because COVID causes a lot of inflammation. And for some people, they can get blood clots in the process of, dealing with COVID. So the specific kind of supplements that, are helpful at addressing these different areas, again, back to zinc and quercetin, vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E and selenium, alpha-lipoic acid, NAC, glutathione, melatonin, fish oils, turmeric. There's a lot of wonderful things, but these are very protective things. There's a lot of, even though we haven't been dealing with COVID so long relative to other viruses, we do have published studies in PubMed now. You can look up, how some of these case studies have gone, see how, vitamin C intravenously has helped people even in hospitals in China. Like, that information is out there now. So we can definitely take things orally. And I'll get into IVs in a second when we talk about, my
case.
Yeah. Yes. But these are some general things we can all do that are accessible, that are inexpensive, that we can all do to really protect ourselves, to try to minimize really bad outcomes with COVID.
Exactly, because that's it. That's what it's all about for people that have not a very serious, like, immune system compromised situation. Because of course, what we can do, because as you say, it's everywhere and we are exposed. So let's build up our immune system. And so you got the virus back in probably February.
Yep.
And so you've come a long way, like a whole journey to actually not only pinpoint it, but also recover from it, given that your symptoms were not the most common. So can you tell us, please, what were your symptoms? And also, what did you do as a naturopath to actually overcome the top 5 that you really think that made a complete difference?
Yes, that I know made a complete difference, and I will tell you. It was tricky. I did not realize I had COVID for a long time, because when I first got COVID, it was before the first lockdown happened here in California. And my symptoms were not the typical, COVID symptoms the way we were talking about them. I didn't have any respiratory symptoms, and no cough, no loss of smell or taste, anything like that. I didn't even really have a big temperature fluctuation. I had symptoms that felt like a cold veering into a flu. I had a little bit of muscle soreness. I had fatigue, definitely needed to sleep more for 7 to 10 days. It passed. I did not test myself for COVID at the time because I didn't think, anything. I thought it was just cold flu. Mm-hmm. And I recovered, and that was fine. And then fast forward, I started having peculiar symptoms. A couple months later, I started having massive hair shedding. Like a third of my hair fell out. It was very scary. I was like, what is happening?
That's so scary. That's like, no. And you're beautiful.
It's the actual medical word, but it was very just puzzling. I was like, what is happening? And I did, have a dermatologist look at my scalp, and we confirmed all that later, but it took me a while to piece it together. So I had hair shedding start. Then I had really random, like, muscle spasms and twitches and muscle pain start happening. And definitely shifts in my nervous system. Was noticing more frequent urination, just definitely feeling like my nervous system all of a sudden was like ramped up. All of a sudden, from having a normal resting heart rate of like 60, 65, I was at over 130, and my blood pressure was up. I know it's crazy. My blood pressure was up and down. I started having arrhythmias. And so this was all like months later. And so I was working with my medical team. We were trying to figure out what was happening. At first we were all thinking, kind of stressed, but it was bizarre. I had never gone through, never had any of these symptoms before. I had a heart monitor, everything, cardiologist, all this stuff. And so finally a nasal swab was done at the end of August, and then I was positive. And so I was like, how can this be? Because I didn't have any acute symptoms of anything that seemed like COVID, except for these crazy kind of dysautonomia type of symptoms. And the doctor told me it's, not as common, but people can still test positive for months after they've had COVID with a nasal swab, small levels of.
You didn't get the storm kind of.
I didn't have what I would. I don't think I had symptoms associated with cytokine storm. I never got anything respiratory. For me, it was really much more. I had nervous system changes, so it was like somebody took my nervous system and put it on high, and I just got stuck there for like 2.5 months.
That's scary.
Really scary, really intense, and also that place of just feeling something very different. I mean, we've all had the flu, we've all had colds. I had never experienced anything like this in my life in terms of the pulse rate. Yeah, it was just very, very intense. And what's interesting is, I have meditated for years, off and on, different lengths of time. I could not settle myself down to even meditate for 5 minutes because it was so unnerving to have palpitations. It was so hard to go to sleep. And so the irony is, knowing in the back of my mind that I really need to go to sleep, as part of the healing, but it was very, very hard to go down. So my number one thing I did for myself to really help with the healing is I got very specific about the nutrients I use to change my biochemistry a little bit to help myself sleep. I took melatonin, I took GABA, I took theanine, amino acids to really help calm down the nervous system. Magnesium to just really force myself to calm down, help myself regulate more so that I could sleep. So that was one of the most important things I think I did, number one, for my own recovery. The next thing I did was, so the shift with my nervous system was causing me to urinate excessively. And so no matter how much I took electrolytes and things like that, it was just really hard for me to hold stuff. So I had to really calm my nervous system down, but I had to replete with extra electrolytes. And I knew this because I was getting blood tests constantly, and I would see my sodium was off, low, my potassium would be low, my phosphate levels were low. And so with my food, I focused on warm food, warm beverages. Because it takes energy for the body to heat that up, and so to try to avoid expending unnecessary energy on digestion. I chose warm foods. A lot of the yogis and Chinese medicine doctors really talk to us about that a lot. And then I had very easy to digest foods that were very nutrient dense and electrolyte dense. So I had a lot of soups, a lot of broths, a lot of herbal teas that were not caffeinated. I am an avid coffee drinker. I love coffee. And for the first time in probably 20 years, I cut my coffee completely.
Wow.
Weeks. Terrible.
Super difficult.
Yeah, very difficult. But and then I repleted with extra sodium, potassium, electrolytes. I took taurine, which is an amino acid that also helps with our electrolyte balance. So that was really key for me in terms of stabilizing both my nervous system and then getting the nutrients in and helping my body assimilate that. And then all of the supplements, I was talking about kind of in the kind of preventive thing, really got those in. I also took extra CoQ10 because it's a great antioxidant, but also because I was having so many arrhythmia issues. I took massive amounts of CoQ10, like 800 milligrams a day, really high dose in divided doses. And between the potassium and the CoQ10 and magnesium, but it was really initially more the potassium, sodium, CoQ10 that really kind of calmed down, and the taurine, the heart stuff that I was having. So that was very, very key in my recovery. Then it was also about, once I was stable enough and recovering more deeply, really reducing stress. So not pushing myself. I actually, when I started exercising, it would be like 30 minutes of walking, gentle, outside, lots of nature, lots of sunshine, but gentle, and tuning in really every day. How am I feeling today? What can I handle today? Thankfully, I was able to change around my work schedule a little bit, but really allow myself really time to have more healing happening, more quiet time in my day. Anything that was extra, I let go of.
Out.
Yeah, out. All the extras were out. And then finally, I also did some really deep kind of regenerative healing practices. I did a series of 10 IV vitamin nutrient drips. It was very, very helpful for me, really bolstered me up.
10?
10, I did 10.
How many days or weeks apart?
That was over a 3-week period. So I did them very intensively. Yeah, because I had a really up and down period where I was, doing better, and then I'd have a dip. And so I needed things to just really help me stabilize. And I even, I worked with a colleague who's also a dear friend who really custom formulated for me. And, we included things like NAD, of course, IV vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, all the electrolytes, B vitamins. So lots of hydration, but some key nutrients.
That helps a lot, right?
When
it goes
instantly.
Intravenous is amazing. I love IV.
Yes.
Love it.
And
acupuncture. Yeah.
Yes, acupuncture.
Yeah, acupuncture.
And I'm still doing acupuncture weekly. And so those were the things that made an enormous shift, and really deeply, I felt like I was coming out the other end.
There's a lot of different ways that this virus attacks, and also it's kind of mutating. And so people that had it back in February last year might not have the same symptoms that the people that might contract it this year. You know, it fluctuates. The one thing that doesn't change is our beautiful body, its knowledge, and how to strengthen it and not suppress it even more, because it's very stressful. And as you said, you are tempted with sugar and alcohol and escapism and things that, instead of build and not sleeping, I am kind of guilty. So instead of focusing on escapism, you can focus on rebuilding. And that's why I wanted to do this video, because I think that that kind of information is crucial, and it's useful for everybody, no matter where. So, and it's applicable everywhere. So I know that my audience is mostly Spanish speakers, but I'm going to translate it, and everything, absolutely everything you said, applies to them too. So it's global, and it's so helpful. And thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge. You're a walking encyclopedia, and I admire you. Namaste.
I admire you. I'm so happy to share. May we get through this really difficult time healthy and vital.
Bueno, pues eso es todo por hoy. Espero les haya sido de utilidad. Ahí, por favor, les pido que me dejen en sus comentarios qué es lo que más retuvieron, qué es lo que piensan implementar, qué es lo que se les hace más fácil, y pues si de alguna manera les sirvió, por favor, compártanlo y pues suscríbanse. Ya saben, este fue la primera entrega del segmento Cápsula Informativa. La segunda va a ser una receta. Así es que, pues espero verlos por aquí prontito, y yo me despido, no sin antes pedirles que sigan cuidando de su hermoso templo. Bye.